Hey everybody, Dr. Baker here. We did a mom's night last night, and one of the topics that came up that was really misunderstood or just people hadn't heard of was a lip tie and tongue tie. And maybe you know exactly what that is, but I want to talk to you about the connection between that and your child's ability to actually process toxins and their potential for vaccine damage. So if you haven't heard of a lip tie or tongue tie, bottom line is your child is born with one or both of these. There's a piece of skin that's under your lip right here, and it comes down and attaches right above your teeth. And in most of us, that skin is above our teeth. And if your child has what's called a lip tie, that piece of skin, what's called a frenulum, it comes all the way down and attaches right at the top of the teeth. And your child they don't obviously have teeth, so you would know because it comes all the way down to the bottom of their gums in the front. Now the other one is called a tongue tie. That little thing right there extends all the way or a lot farther up the tongue, and so then what happens there is your child's tongue is unable to create the motion that it needs to create in order to literally like push onto the nipple and pull milk out of your nipple. And so if your child has a lip tie and or tongue tie, most likely you're experiencing things like they don't latch very well. They're colicky all the time. My daughter had a tongue tie, and because she couldn't suck very well, there wasn't a good latch, she was getting air bubbles in her stomach. That created gas, created pain, and she just didn't know how to fart. So you can imagine how annoyed it would be and how painful it would be, so you'd scream all the time. And the doctor goes, well, we don't know, it's just colicky, it'll pass. No, that's not how it works. So the other thing with a tongue tie is it's going to create tightness throughout everything, skull, spine, muscles. So craniosacral therapy is something that would be huge and very, very useful if your child has a tongue tie and or a lip tie. A tongue tie can even affect the way they crawl. So if your child kind of like scoots, right, and you haven't figured this out yet, your child has a tongue tie, guarantee it. If you leave that there, it causes significant problems down the road. Not only are we talking about problem latching and you're like, I just want to give up and give my bottle, forget this breastfeeding thing. Well, stick with it, because it's not your child's fault, it's not your fault, it's the fact they have a tongue tie. But it can lead to migraines, lead to all kinds of tension and all kinds of other issues of the body. It causes serious problems down the road. So with a lip tie, you're going to see a gap in the teeth. And so if your children are older and you're like, oh my God, I was wondering about that gap, they have a lip tie. You just didn't really know it or didn't see it. But it will create a gap in your kid's teeth. My son has a gap in his teeth. He has a lip tie. My daughter had a lip tie and tongue tie. Both of them got cut, and she does not have a gap in her teeth. So yes, unfortunately, you do have to have surgery for this. You do have to cut it. Most of the time, they're either going to clip it and stitch it, or they're going to laser it. We had our daughters lasered. That's the one that I think makes the most sense, but you do have to do something about it if you want it to go away. It's not just going to disappear, and it will cause problems down the road. So cut the tongue tie and lip tie, find a pediatric dentist that specializes in that, and go down that route. If you have questions about that, let me know. So what does this mean though? Most of the time there is a connection between a gene mutation and a lip tie and tongue tie. And so mom, dad, if you have a deviated septum, if you have a midline defect, meaning one side of your face seems different than the other side, if you are very prone to toxins and smells and odors, you're like, God, like if you're like me and you smell Axe and you want to punch the dude in the head because it stinks so bad it gives you a headache, gasoline, the smell in an airplane, Glade plugins, too much perfume, if all of those things set you off and trigger you, you might have a gene defect or a gene mutation. The most common one you've probably heard of is the MTHFR. If you have an MTHFR, some of the gene mutation, you're expressing those things, and your children have expressed that with a tongue tie or lip tie, your child's body does not process toxins like other people. You are detoxing all day, every day, ideally. Well, if toxins build up and keep building up, eventually you're going to have problems. You're going to have symptoms. Someone asked me, well, what does that lead to? Cancer, autoimmune disease, everything. If your body's super toxic, it leads to everything. So you can do genetic testing if you're concerned about it. Do genetic testing on yourself to see if you have any gene mutations that you're passing on to your kids. If your kids have lip tie, tongue tie, get them cut, but realize maybe that's a really, really big sign that we should not vaccinate, or we should minimally vaccinate, or space it out, or do whatever you got to do. I'm not telling you what to do with your kids, but I am telling you that if you have that, the odds of your children having a vaccine-related injury or vaccine damage just skyrockets. It goes way up. And so if you aren't having a baby yet, haven't had one yet, get your own testing done to check for genetic mutations and know what you're passing on. But depending on where you're at with your kids, that's a big indicator. So if you've already vaccinated your kids and you're sitting there going, nothing's happened, I don't see any issues, but they do have the tongue tie, lip tie thing, or they did, I've got that genetic thingy, and we did, well, then it's time to vaccinate. It's time to detox your kids. It's time to modulate their immune system. It's time to get the right products in place in order to help clean up shop and help to calm down the fire in your kids' immune system and improve their ability to methylate so that they can actually detox. All of those things are things that we can help with, things that you can do. There's resources out there, so don't feel hopeless. I'll see you around.